Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for tuning into this video today. So I'm going to be doing a mini series of paintings. You may have seen the last couple that I've done. I will leave links in the description below. I have a whole playlist of them and I'm really excited about showing you guys this one in particular today. It's of a beautiful boardwalk on a tropical island, and here are all the colors we're going to be using. I'll list everything below in the description of this video. We're working on a canvas board today and it's 8 by 10. Let's go ahead and get started. I've got a large soft blending brush to start with for the sky. Now I'm going to pick up titanium white to begin. I've got my brush just a little bit wet and I'm going to start pulling it across the canvas. Picking up a little bit of phthalo blue, and I'm going to start pulling that across the top of the canvas. Blending that in with a little bit of that white, making for a very soft, creamy looking sky. Now I'm turning my brush up and down at times and doing little circles, so that's going to help to create some taller looking clouds. With the corner of my brush, picking up turquoise and a little bit of white. I'm going to continue with those same colors, blending softly and then pulling for the horizon line right down there. Next brush, a mini mop brush. We'll load it up with white paint and start adding the little peaks to these clouds. So to help create perspective, we're going to make these clouds really small, closer to the horizon line. That gives us that feeling that they're really far away and there's distance that goes quite far back there. And I'm adding a little bit of white and then light blue violet right underneath the clouds. This is going to create a little bit of shadow and make the clouds stand out just a little bit more. We're going to leave them really light on the top though. Excuse me. I'm going to softly blend that in, and then I'm going to add a little bit of that blue violet up on the top left corner. That overlapping with the phthalo blue and a little bit of that turquoise looks really pretty together. Now turquoise with a light blue violet. I'm going to pull another line right across here, making it a little bit thicker. Phthalo blue, light blue violet. I'm going to add some more color up here. This all helps to create subtle depth in a painting while keeping it soft at the same time. Okay, let's pull some turquoise across now for the water. So I'm going to lightly pull across and blend and take a little bit of white, soften that up to create that soft, shallow looking water that comes right up to the shore, right over that sand. Now I'm going to pick up my gold metallic paint, mix it with white, and add a pretty sparkly sheen to part of the sand in the beach area. I'll now come in with the boardwalk, and it's just like a triangle, so wider on the bottom and then smaller and kind of pointier on the very top. Now that's just an easy, quick way of creating perspective in a painting. Then we'll paint in the rest of the sand with that light gold color, more white than gold though. I'm now going to take yellow ochre, gold, and a little bit of my green and a bit of black, and I'm going to just tap in a tiny little bush over here. I'm going to highlight with a little bit of yellow ochre, more black, burnt sienna, and yellow ochre now, and I'll work on the foreground, bottom left, tapping in this section down here and right up to that boardwalk. And I'm going to add the same colors for the boardwalk, and then I'm going to pull my brush across to create those boards. A flat brush would work really well for this too. You'll probably get more detailed, neater, straighter lines if you use a flat brush. I've got a liner brush now, and I'm just going to take phthalo with my burnt sienna to create a dark color that's not black. I'm going to add a thin line on the outside, both sides of the boardwalk, and then I'm going to leave a white line in between. So you'll have two dark lines on either side with a white line in between. And it's up to you how much detail you want to add for the boards on this boardwalk. You can do every single line and board if you want, or just keep it a little bit more blurry and indistinct. So I'm just going to come in here with my little flat brush now and clean this up a little bit, add a little bit of highlights. Maybe there's some sand that's on the boardwalk, so some parts of it are going to be a little bit lighter looking, and I'll just be kind of dry brushing over later on with some white. And then I'll just take a little bit of burnt sienna and add a bit more detail and shadow. So what I want to do now, I'm going to wash this brush out, and then I'm going to go back to my clouds and add a little bit more highlights now that the paint has had time to dry. It's a bit darker, so I'm just taking a little liner or round brush here. Either one will work, and I'm just tapping and dabbing on a little bit of titanium white. Now looking back now, I wish that I had taken the time to add a little bit of neon red or peach to my clouds. Tinting that white would have really set the sky off. Same with the sand. You could also add a little bit of peach color with your white for your sand. So I'm just coming in with that light blue violet again, reshadowing and horizon line. All right, back to a mop brush. This is my medium mop brush. I'm going to work on this bigger bush right here, black and green. We're just going to tap, tap, tap right up close to that boardwalk and almost halfway up the canvas, so the bush comes just over the horizon line. I'm going to tap in without washing my brush, burnt sienna, with a bit of that black. It's going to be very, very dark right in this area here. Then I'm going to come in with a liner brush and just create a few little branches. And I'm just going to take some of my gold, white, and pretty much just pull around the paint that's already on there because it's pretty wet still. I'm just going to add a little bit of light down here because I made it a bit too solid. So there should be little areas of where there's spaces between the branches where the light is able to come through and reflect down in some areas at the base of this bush. So I'm going to go back for my light background color, some turquoise, a little bit of white, and I'm just going to tap in some more light in this tree to give back some areas that aren't completely full of leaves and make it not so solid looking so you can see through the tree in some spots. I'm going to add a highlight of my warm yellow green here, tapping on for some leaves, a little bit of yellow ochre, white and green, and I'll add a few little dots and dabs here on that bush back there, and then a little bit of black for some more shadow, a little bit of green, okay, now I'm going to start working on the shadow on the left side of this boardwalk. Liner brush clean with blue violet and phthalo blue. Mix the two together and we'll start layering over on this area right here and then kind of rolling and scumbling that paint around in messy little lines. And I'm going to add a little bit of Dioxazine Purple, mix that with my blues, and I'll begin mixing that in as well for the shadow area. Now I really recommend whenever you're adding shadows to a painting to not think of just using gray or just black. I think that purple and blue make beautiful color choices for your shadows and paintings, especially in a tropical one with that turquoise water, because they're very complementary. Okay, I'm going to wash my brush off now. I think that looks okay, and I'm going to switch over to my mini fan brush, and we're going to begin working on this giant palm leaf. And this might be a little bit scary after you've worked really hard on your sky, but you can, and it's optional. You don't have to add this, but for those of you who like this big palm leaf, we're going to get our brush a little bit wet, pull into the yellow ochre, gold, and green now. A little bit of black, and we're going to start pulling and flicking. So that big arch first is just with the yellow ochre, gold, and white. And the leaves, if you look closely at palm leaves, they're not always just green. So that's why I'm mixing the yellow ochre, gold with black and my light green here. Now you'll want to have a lot of water mixed with your paint on your brush to help it flow so you get that kind of feathery look to your palm leaf, and it just really helps the paint flow easily. Otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to get frustrated and push too hard with your brush, and you'll make your leaves too solid, and you don't want to do that because then you're not going to be able to see all the spaces between, showing that pretty blue sky. So if you've never painted palm leaves before, I'd recommend practicing beforehand, guys. And I've got a lot of seascape, palm tree video tutorials. I've got a whole playlist, and I'll try to remember to add that in my description below as a link. I'm going to highlight now with my light green. I'm just going to continue turning my brush sideways as well if I want to have more defined, thicker leaves. You want to just try to make them pointy on the ends, and you could take the time and do every single one with a liner brush, but I find it much simpler and more effective to use either a Filbert or, in this case, a mini fan brush. Okay, I'm happy with that palm leaf. I'm going to add a few finishing touches to this painting before I call it done. I want to mix up my brown, burnt sienna, white and yellow ochre, and pull and drag across the boardwalk for some lighter areas, like I was talking before about making it look like there's maybe some sand on there, or it's very weathered looking, or just for some highlights. With a clean round or liner brush, or even a small flat brush for this area here for the shadows, I'm just going to lighten this up slightly. It was drying really dark, and I don't want to lose that glowing kind of a shadow color. I didn't want it to look too much like the Dioxazine Purple. That would be too dark. And I'm just going to tidy this area up here. I don't want to get too carried away with trying to make everything perfectly straight. I want to keep it kind of loose and just make sure I express that feeling across through my painting that I'm trying to. Just pulling a little bit more white on either side here of the boardwalk and on the sand, and kind of just going over the very end of that boardwalk to make it look a little bit more blurry, fuzzy, and like it's in the distance. Finally, a little bit more green here on the bush. I'm going to mix it up a little bit with my phthalo blue and just pull and drag and flick with my liner brush, getting a little bit of water, and I'm going to carefully try to pull that one off there because it had a little bit of a lump on it that didn't look quite right. So here I'm adding the final touch to the boardwalk with my flat brush. I'm getting really close to where that dark burnt sienna is, and then I'm pulling and flicking across with it. And now for the very last touch to this painting, a little bit of turquoise on either side. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Thanks again for joining me today, you guys. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more. Bye!